welcome to this webinar about global demand planning. I have the pleasure to be accompanied by Paul and Tommy, who I will introduce in just a minute. Before I do that, first a bit of context to the agenda of today. So what we will have is a panel discussion. So we have prepared three main topics with subtopics in each of these that we will go through. So have some questions and we will have discussion. So it's not scripted or anything. There might be some points on which both Paul or Tommy could not go into full details, of course. That's understandable. So they might say that. However, if you have any questions, you can also include those in the Q&A. So any of you attendees can just put them there. I will keep track of those questions. If they are relevant during the discussion, I might already pick them up, or otherwise we will reserve some time in the end to do that part. Now, the webinar is also recorded, so if you do need to leave for some reason, don't worry, you will get the recording afterwards in any case. So brief introductions. Myself, I'm co-founder of Horizon, and I will be moderating this session between both Paul and Tommy. So to introduce these two gentlemen very briefly, Paul has been in different planning roles, different companies, such as Goodyear, such as Jaguar Land Rover, and currently at Mondelēz. So he's held roles on global data level, as well as head of demand planning in a center of excellence. So thank you, Paul, for being here. Looking forward to hear from your experience. And on the other hand, we also have Tommy here. Tommy has been in different roles at BSH, which used to be Bosch, and he's currently the global process owner for automated forecasting and also for the demand planning. So also looking forward to your insights, Tommy. Two quite different companies, and you've both held different roles. So curious to see what that will bring in terms of discussion. So with that, we'll dive right in, and we'll start with the part on AI and machine learning in practice, the first of our three main topics. And we'll start talking about the outside-in signals and causal modeling, because those two are closely linked to each other. So I'm curious from both of you, maybe starting with you, Tommy, within BSH, what kind of signals do you use besides the traditional historical data?
Sure. Yeah. So thanks a lot for the introduction, Ben, and warm welcome also from my side. So we in BSH, so we are using the outside in general, 200 different signals to be able then to have a good prediction for the upcoming months. So we have differentiate our outside in signals into, I would say, buckets. The first bucket is the consumer, so like seasonal indicators, holiday and special days, like exchange rates, social media data, consumer surveys, and so on. So these are a lot of signals which are used in our model, which are coming directly from the consumer. But nevertheless, we have also our customer taken into account. So like sell-out price, customer sell-out stock, for example, by the customers, and also for certain customers we use also the customer forecast. So in general, so these are the outside in signals which are using, but as I said, we have more. These are a couple of what I picked out, but in general, 200 indicators are used.
Okay, that's a lot. How about from your side, Paul?
I don't think we've got as many as Tommy, to be honest, but it's good to know there is a validation, and there's a similarity, even though that we are in different industries. I think probably the key one for us is promotion activity. Certainly for a snacking product, that to know where it's going to be sold within the retailers is also always key. But there's also, and again, we go through that kind of bucketing of kind of the traditional sales, marketing, finance kind of thing. So pricing actions, competitor activity, distribution changes, the amount of new customers that come in, promos, seasonal, obviously is a big part of our product portfolio as well. And also tie that into account with advertising campaigns, whether it be marketing or there's kind of large investment campaigns in terms of partnerships. For example, within the UK, for example, Cadbury has a very strong sporting collaboration. There's a lot of events that go on throughout the course of the year, and taking all those outside in signals is kind of a key part of how we go about and formulate our machine learning and statistical forecasting.
Okay, so you both describe different buckets of data. Question becomes then, where or how do you regularly get that data? How do you make sure that it's it's valid and usable, especially if you have like 200 of these different signals. Tommy, how do you handle that part? Because some you get from customers, like you say, but then some others might be just external. So
we have we are using a lot of open source, so also Amazon services and so on, and we are connected to that with APIs, so every month, so we are using the data, but nevertheless, integrating our model, we do also some importance analysis and impact analysis, so of the indicators, which is then as well what you said, very important, of the quality of this indicator. Okay, how this indicator can at the end influence and will influence at the end my forecast, and which kind of latency. So all those things are then considered really to also, I would say, not process too much indicators, really the important one, which are directly integrated in the model.
Okay, that's the part then of the causal modeling, basically, right? Where you do that kind of exercise.
Yeah.
Okay. Are you also putting that data in through APIs, Paul, from certain sources, or is it more information from the departments?
We certainly kind of treat our demand signals like products, like you would in terms of anything that you're just saying, hey, they are versioned, they're governed, and then they're retired when they're, when they lose relevance. I kind of, from my personal experience, the first time we were implementing advanced statistical modeling in Europe, a month in, COVID hits. So the complete, you have a complete seismic change in terms of not only the market, but the product mix and everything like that. So it's echoing what Tommy says. It's about determining the relevance and the kind of importance to the demand signal that these kind of different data sets have. I think having that, don't treat it like a data dump. Just prioritize what are the most important signals, and 5 to 15 high quality signals are better than having 50 weak ones. So kind of it's a curated feed of these high value signals that we kind of drive the faster and better decision making within the organization.
Okay. And do you then have some sort of sense which of those signals drives it the most? Do you have some clear impact that you can show for those different ones, or how do you model it? Let's maybe start with that first. Like, how do you go about approaching 200 signals and assessing which ones are the most relevant ones? There are different forecasting, different machine learning algorithms out there. Can you maybe, Tommy, share a bit of best practices or what people could look into?
Currently, I can say maybe some words about this, if it's okay. So, as I said as I answered for the first question, so we are using a lot of statistical methods like correlation analysis, impact analysis, and importance analysis. So we are able really to see after our forecast run, how intensive all of the signals had at the end an impact on my forecast, because this is also very important if we talk about explainability to the I would say end users, so we can really explain them why this forecast drop was caused by one of the indicators, So
that's a correlation part, right? That's
exactly, the correlation part.
And then the causality of that, because that's still a distinction. How do you then are able to make that, or is that difficult to do?
Exactly, So this is everything integrated in one model, because these are then also outputs which can be used then also to provide these results to the planner, and that they can also fully understand, why now the model, provides here the forecast, what is maybe different to my expectation, so this can be then balanced out between left and right, something like this.
Okay. Do you have any insights, Paul, on how you do that, or what people could look into to try and do this?
We have an internal data science team by region who kind of was set up a big communication forum. So they would go every month when a new forecast was generated, they talk through with the demand planners of, these are the drivers of the change in the forecast, and then try to empower them as much so when they're talking to their commercial partners in a demand review to kind of give them that explanation and put the meat and the bones of why that decision was particularly made. So we kind of set up within the data tools that we were using, various driver reports that would kind of again quantify that effect of that particular signal or that particular causation factor for the demand planner to ultimately make that decision.
Okay, that's clear. And in terms of those different types of signals and the point of demand sensing, coming to that third topic, there's still at least in my conception of it, there's a distinction between then demand sensing and using just other external data. Demand sensing I see as using sellout data, POS data, so the downstream data, whereas external indicator, I don't necessarily see as demand sensing from my traditional understanding of it. First of all, is that also how you see it? And if that's the case, do you treat that differently, or do you throw that all together with those different signals?
I can talk for BSH, so we have definitely split into two visions, I would say. We're using our causal modeling and our causal forecast tool, for the mid and long-term planning and demand sensing, because in BSH, we're using the IBP for demand tool. We're using the traditional and available functionality of demand sensing, which is provided by SAP IBP. And here also, for what we are really using demand sensing is to detect the order behavior patterns on a more granular level, like week or day. And so because of course you can on the one hand side have a great monthly forecast with a great forecast accuracy, but what will happen if you have customers which ordering, I don't know, 80% of their monthly volume in the first week? So you have also to detect this, and for this I see a big potential, and also already in BSH, of demand sensing, which is a combination of, for example, algorithm, which is predicting as such, I would say, more granular forecast, and with this forecast consumption function capability, so also to match the order situation, so to avoid any forecast consumption errors for the MRP run. This is how we are using in BSH. So we split it into really two, let's say, the one is mid long-term planning, leading by causal modeling, and the second part is the demand sensing, during, I would say, the month during the SNOP cycle. And so on.
Okay, clear distinction. Is the same for you, Paul?
Absolutely. We are of the opinion that demand sensing only really adds value if the rest of the organization is set up to handle their changes. So you can take those economic indicators, for a longer term plan, but actually when, as Tommy was saying, a customer has a varied order pattern, and certainly with something like Mondelēz, where a lot of our products have a limited shelf life. So if we're depending on someone making a call or placing an order within the ordering system. So, and a big change in that could actually have quite significant downstream effects to our manufacturing capabilities. So my view is demand sensing, it buys you time to kind of be able to take in those and adjust to the varying conditions of the market, but it's only of relevance really if your supply network can then actually also adjust to react to that signal.
Yeah, it's also then most relevant if you can react to it, right? Otherwise, it's just visibility that you're not going to be able to do it in the short term. So if you don't link it to that actual executional piece, demand sensing, then the real value is just about it. But
absolutely, if something comes out like say one of our chocolate bars has amazing medicinal effect and can cure what ails you, but actually we're on allocation and we've got to split it between the regions. It's demand sensing is only kind of a limited capability to actually make any difference in that situation.
Yeah, indeed.
Still a good thing to have there.
Okay, clear. But based on the concept that traditional understanding, let's say you both also have it in that manner, so that's interesting to see. Then I would like to come to the part of the impact of those different types of data as well as demand sensing. I don't know if you have done such experiments, or if you can clearly say demand sensing, if we turn that off, for instance, in the short term over certain lags or certain periods up front, we see that kind of accuracy or bias improvement. It might be difficult to say it will fluctuate from period to period, but do you have some sort of indications within your business of what you've seen there?
Exactly. I would say, first of all, to answer the question, how important is external data? From my opinion, it's key. So external data is key because we can already see here big forecast value add with, I would say, this outside-in approach, really to cover this bi-direction orchestration, to really, I would say, have everyone under one roof. And after the implementation of external data and with this new setup, so we are now able to gain a forecast value add of lag-free in mix, by 10 percentage points, into the traditional, I would say, forecast method, what we are also using currently or in parallel. So for lag-free, we see 10 percentage points of forecast value add in mix forecast accuracy, and around about 8 percentage points in lag-6. So here already we are really celebrating these great results, and also the users are very, I would say, open to use it then at the end, because with this value add transparency, you have also the peoples on your side, because they accept then, hey guys, yes, that's it, because we see that the external data support us a lot of to gain the improvement. Because data is one point, but also in the SNOP meetings where we are sitting with marketing and sales, you gain also a lot of information, but information are more, I would say, in sentences, and words. So today with new technology, we have also to transfer and translate this into data products, so that we can still train our models further and further to be, even better as today, or as with the current forecast value add results. So therefore, I see here still a big potential if we combine those again in data products to train our models over the.
Okay, that's a clear improvement that you've established here. Paul, do you also have something concrete on it, or?
Yeah, I mean, so as Tom was mentioning, kind of the FVA, as we come into our kind of 5th year now of our advanced statistical modelling and ML-based statistical forecasting, we are seeing clear, certainly on the longer term, so our lag 3 to lag 6, from a statistical point of view, often outperforms the kind of initial view of the market or the demand planner. So, we now have an opportunity today to say, actually within the system, we can introduce parameters that say, we can take a statistical forecast over certain horizons and just translate that into our operational forecast. And we're trying to get more into the account of, again, Tom was saying, from sales and perspective. If I think back to right at the start of my kind of planning career, it would literally be sat down in a room with the sales director, marketing director, this is our numbers, and the salespeople come in, this is my individual plan. What I can see now is far more important is to release the sales team from forecasting duties, literally putting together a forecast by some instances by SKU, which I've seen in other companies. And they then become the conduits for bringing information and those the information signals that you won't get in the open source and the public domain. So they'll have an idea from the relationships they establish with their customers, what are the competitors, promotional activities, do they know of kind of any blockages in their delivery systems and being able to get the product out. So certainly external data is incredibly powerful. But again, as we said back, it's got to be curated, it's got to be very localized, and it's got to be validated and tied to a decision. So there's no point having lots of external data pulling together everything that can best hit you, unless you can actually tie it to an action that's being made.
Okay, it takes effort and data science in this case to make it work, but then you do see a significant impact, both of you. Okay, that's interesting.
Absolutely.
That's a lot on the we've now discussed on the analytical part, the modeling part, let's say it like that. I see some questions on this, but for time purposes, we will move on first to the second topic, which is more on the process and people impacts. So talking about in that case, or tools in general, what you both have seen there. So not the pure modeling as such, but more for a planner using the system, what has worked in terms of saving them time? If you talk about exceptions, how do you set that up? How do you understand where they have to focus on? How do you approach that?
Here, in our case in BSH, when we really start this initiative and the implementation of automation, so we said, okay, we need a clear guideline. So how to use it? Not only, I would say, let's bring a tool into the life and that's all. No, we need also a clear guideline. How to combine this guideline to make the life of the planners easier. So we generate also some, we call it color codes, which gives to the planners a clear view. Hey, should I touch now this plan or not? Okay, red and green, for example. So we set some thresholds, and also there where we see maybe a good focused accuracy with the automated model, but we have an unexpected situation. We also defined, okay, if you need now to adjust the forecast or override the forecast, yes, you be allowed to do this, but on I would say until a specific tolerance. Okay, let's adjust it, but maximum, I don't know, 10 percentage points, for example. So this is how you really also give a kind of freedom to the planners also to make them aware, hey, you are still the last person which decide is this good or not, you know. So after your decision, based on our rules and guidelines, what we defined, we allow also some exceptions, but which are also limited and ordered. Yeah. So this is how we defined exceptions with a clear guideline and also a clear task list to the planners how they should work with the new tool.
Okay. Paul, is that similar for you? I would assume so, but in that case, are those boundaries fixed, or are they changing throughout time? How do you approach that part? Because that's a process part also, right?
I wish I could say something that is directly contradictory to what Tommy's saying, but I think, you know, the overall kind of process is the same. You set up a governance and you liaise with the markets and the regions to understand, you know, what are the kind of limits of exceptions. We did the same thing. You know, alerts are set up within you know, whatever planning system they have in terms of.
Is it then fixed initially, or do you then also regularly review that part?
I think, you know, it's they could pull a figure. They could be like 10, 20, 30%, that kind of thing. I think the one thing that we want to make it, there's 10, 20, 30% of a 5-ton annual volume, rather as opposed to 5% of a 500,000 ton a year volume. It's about using the AI to eliminate, not to kind of eliminate the exceptions, but to elevate them and send them to the right people to make them aware of that particular point. So certainly within Mondelēz, we want the planners to spend the time on the exceptions that actually matter rather than everything that exists. So, you know, in terms of bringing that information, and any good planning system should have that, is being able to alert of major changes. And, you know, this is where the planner needs to steer their focus on in the initial, you know, when they're looking at a run rate in the start of the month, or, you know, if they're putting together something for the next 18 months as a stats forecast comes in or is generated via ML, is to actually, okay, here's the ones that are changing. Their first goal would be to try to understand why they're changing, and you know, and I think that'll probably lead on to your black box perception that we'll talk about in a bit, Ben. But and
before that black box, is that something, Paul, that you see within the tools as alerts that you set up, or is that also something where you explore this Gen AI, for instance, assistant that will pop up those alerts, or a planner comes in and can interact to understand the priorities? How have you seen any of that, Paul?
Not within what we're working with at the moment. I think, you know, it's common knowledge that Mondelēz is working with O9 to bring in a new planning system. So there's certainly an ambition towards getting that agentic AI. And I remember, you know, when me and you first met, Ben, you showed me stuff in Garvis, which was, you know, chat GPT enabled, and would say, okay, as a planner, what do I need to do today, and kind of have that you know, that relationship in terms of actually where do I need to focus on. So that's certainly where we want to get to as an organization. But we go through kind of generative phases of actually, say, Gen 1, Gen 2, Gen 3. And so there's roadmaps towards those. And so I'll let Tommy talk more about BSH, but it's certainly an ambition of ours to be able to get to that.
Okay, clear. And indeed, from BSH perspective, if you work with IBP, SAP has Joule in there. Is that something that you're using, Tommy? And for people out there, Joule is the assistant or the Gen AI capability, as far as I understand it, from SAP.
Due to the situation that we have developed our own causal forecast model, so this is not like an, I would say, customized or already available product by IBP. So we really created our own environment where we run this causal forecast model. So therefore, SAP Joule is also, or the functionality and capability of Joule is limited. But nevertheless, we have also on our roadmap some Gen AI functionalities which we would like to include and fuse and merge with our models. So really, and our first aim and goal is definitely the topic of explainability. We would like to be also more closer to the end users to explain them what the model did. So this is what we have currently on the roadmap. It's not in use. I was also in the early adopter early adopter program of IBP SAP Joule. And I see there are also great functionalities, but as I said, due to the fact that we have our own one, and we will build as well something by ourselves and develop by ourselves. So, but nevertheless, so that's what I saw in IBP for SAP IBP with SAP Joule is it's great, yeah. And also, if you're still in the system in the SAP IBP environment, this is definitely useful then for the future. But as a BSH decided, yeah, to have our own one, because we started very early, so 4 years ago, before SAP IBP had this opportunity to do it directly in the environment. Yeah.
Okay, clear. So both of you, within both companies, there's this plan to start working with it. However, at the moment, yeah, it's not fully being used yet, and that could be solved, or that could be used to solve the black box perception that's out there right now. Regarding the planner role, then how do you, Paul, maybe first see that role changing with these tools, with all these exceptions, with this kind of interface, with the causal modeling? How does that change throughout the years? Because you've been in different roles, so you've seen it throughout the years also.
I say the planner then becomes a decision scientist. So they take into account, I think planner now is be able to tell the story. It's be able to kind of communicate with the commercial partners, tell marketing, tell finance, based on the information that I've got, and using tools like FBA to be able to kind of, get trust and validation within the system. I've seen, I've been in companies before where the planner is simply the delivery mechanism of what a sales director says. And I think we're entering an era now with AI and machine learning, is that it doesn't necessarily, we don't want it to replace planners, but actually redefine them and elevate them and give them more kind of power to be able to get trust in the numbers. So I can see they will have to have an appreciation of not only the kind of commercial constraints and the commercial operations of an organization, but also have to take into account what's coming out of a data model, breaking through that black box perception, telling them story through FBA, and kind of not beating the system, but actually coaching it to kind of continuously improve and get better in what is generated.
So in that case, the role becomes more about being able to interpret it and collaborating with other departments, challenging them, maybe even storytelling, I would assume. But like, there's also this other approach that I think of, this other kind of role, which I think, from what I've heard from your side, Tommy, is more like into the modeling part, right? Where you can also then say that the role could change more towards the modeling itself. How do you see that in that direction, or not at all? Just my own assumption, maybe.
Yeah, sure. I think the planner role needs to be changed, because I think the whole demand planning philosophy changed with AI and ML. Yeah, so I don't think so that we will have a traditional demand planning process as it was in the 1999s. So for me, and not only the technology steps in now in our life. No, also we need to be prepared and ready to use it, because we would like to unfold the full potential. And to be able to unfold the full potential, we need also to change our work style a little bit. So I would say I see very often, because I was as well a planner, and I was very often like a number cruncher, so I crunch a lot of numbers. But now I really recognize, with this tool, with these outcomes, with these results, I have more time, especially what you said, to challenge cross-functional departments, to challenge also marketing and their expectation, really to find like a best fit, go really into the best fit, to collaborate together, to find the best option for the whole company, so that we can gain and achieve great. So this is, from my perspective, what I see for maybe the next upcoming months and years. But I'm sure that the planner's role will change and needs to be changed.
We will come to it in the next topic also, that number crunching part. There are tools out there, or you can do it in the data science team. So that's still a discussion. Like, you have the planner role, then you have data scientists setting up those models. So what's the kind of distinction? We will come to that. One final point I do want to touch upon here is, what do you both think is important in terms of change management, getting planners through this? Also, companies or people maybe being afraid of these tools in some cases, because it does save some time also. So how do you see that, both of you?
For me, I think we need to get them accustomed. This isn't a replacement; it's an enabler. It's an augmentation to a person's skill sets. what I could, given a practical example, what I said before, where if we see a statistical forecast is better 6 months, lag 6, then if you've got that history of trust within the numbers, then you can really have the value added of the more short term or medium term, making sure that forecast is the best it possibly can be, and kind of being able to free up the time to talk, as Tommy said, talk to those commercial partners. But it's about spelling the benefits, and you have to do that from a planner, from finance, from sales and marketing. You have to be able to set out from the very get-go that actually this is going to benefit me in so many ways, because I'll have more time to free up to focus on the shorter term, do those value generating activities, and be able to feed back into the whatever's kind of feedback loop that you've got for making adjustments to parameters within AA models, and kind of really building trust in the new change that you want to implement.
That's okay. So as an enable, not necessarily replacement. In the case of BSH, Tommy, is that also the kind of narrative that you see, or do you also see from a global level there are also talks of replacement in some cases?
Yeah, of course they get the feeling some here and there, but nevertheless I would like to see this as, I can confirm what Paul said, and that's also my vision. But what I can say, so AI is not a part of transformation. I would say AI defines a transformation, and transformations, every time I would say you need to be very strength in humanity, so you need to collect the people, you need to step in all the topics with the people together. Because if I'm an expert, for example, with my data scientist team, in modeling and so on, yes, that's great, but I need also experience from each planner, so that they have the feeling, okay, I'm also a very strong part of this transformation, of this new way to plan. So, and how we really gain in the people, and how we really have the people on our side, is we are presenting also the time savings. We are presenting also them the forecast value added. We're also presenting them, okay, which kind of impact have a good forecasters to maybe a service level, or also to our inventory structure, to let them know, hey, not only the forecast is important, because we have also a big part of service cost and capital, which we need to cover somehow with my task. Of course, demand plans cannot cover everything, but I have to know which kind of dependencies I have also to my next, so to the production, to my supplier, and so on, to gain the stability. So for us, it's also important that the planners at the end believe in the tool, in the process, based on the outcome, so on the result. And this is how we are really transparent, sharing the results, and also discussing further enhancements together with really the end users. So we start to do transformation, or maybe implementing a new tool, a new way to work, then every time with the peoples who will work then with this tool at the end.
Okay. That makes sense, because you have to make it clear what the benefits are for them, otherwise they might not keep using it and it doesn't run on itself. So then you will just lose the benefits for the business and for the planner. So that's a good point. Okay, coming to the third topic, I saw again a couple of questions in the Q&A, but let's move to the third topic first, which is more on the global versus regional planning. We're talking multinational companies here, so the setup is different from a company that just operates very regionally and doesn't have to build a structure out, but in both of your cases that is the case. So Paul, how do you go about, for other companies or in general, should they establish a center of excellence? What are the trade-offs there for people who maybe haven't done it yet? Can you share some of your experience or insights?
Yeah, I think it depends on the size. I think you alluded to, Ben. It depends on the size of the industry. We've got something like Mondelēz, where we've got 70 markets, we've got 100 plus manufacturers, we've got 300 to 400 distribution centers. There needs to be some kind of, not oversight, but an awareness. And I think one of the misconceptions I may have run into was that sometimes centers of excellence I feel like they're police. Well, actually we're not. We're enablers. They're kind of the way I look at it is flexibility within a framework. I think don't be a bottleneck, but actually share best practice. And that's some of the things that Mondelēz really did embrace, certainly, in terms of kind of setting up global communities of practice. We've got different markets at different levels of maturity, different routes to market. And the kernel of a good idea is a good idea. So even if it don't necessarily work for a market within your region, there's going to be someone across the world who will understand, oh, that's something I haven't thought of yet. And the real power of a COE becomes in scaling good ideas, but not necessarily enforcing one way of working. Because I'm pretty sure everyone on this call has been in a company, if they're in a global, who has said, this is the way we're going to do things. There's going to be one method, and have worked towards it, and then may have have had to have some kind of backing from that. So, and I think again, where that flexibility with the framework is about establishing how, what's best practice, how is ideal to work, but then allowing them to have some kind of guide rails on that and put their own touch in it, which is going to, it may be culturally, maybe legislatively, that they need to make adjustments to that particular one way of working. And like I said, it's about connecting people within the organization.
It's a good point, having that flexibility still, and but providing structure. And I think some companies to be careful indeed that you are indeed still enabling and not becoming that kind of police, like you mentioned. It's a balance that needs to be maintained. And in terms of but that's probably a difficult one, Paul. But do you have some sort of sense for what kind of, because it depends on industry and company, but what kind of scale should companies start to look into? Sometimes I speak to companies and they also want to start doing this or want to set it up.
Certainly historically, Mondelēz have not only had global but regional centre of excellences, so it will completely depend. When you're in a multi-market region, let's say for Europe, I think there's a case for having people reach out and share those best practices. If you are a mom and pop operation in the middle of where I live, Birmingham, then maybe you don't. But I think certainly something. If you've got something that is going across multi markets, then there could be an argument for having that centre of excellence and sharing those best practices.
Okay. And in terms of Tommy, with what you've seen in terms of ownership and ownership of KPIs also, because some things are shared or enabled or even enforced in some cases by the global level. So how is that being done? That kind of ownership of metrics and plans?
Yeah, we would say, or I would say in BSH, so the ownership of planning stays regional, because in our case, the local planner knows their market best, because they're working also close with the business units, so marketing and sales. But of course, we are globally focusing on the governance, so on KPIs and best practices, to ensure this consistency. So we have we call it also 4 I's principle, So of course we have targets, but this is also under control of our department. We are calling business excellence performance, which are tracking the KPIs and so on, and which are also raise up the hand if they see some, let's say, discrepancies or where we cannot achieve the target. So it's like a mix in our case. I said ownership of planning stays in the regional, but globally we are focused on the governance. So really the KPI steering, best practice, and so on.
Okay. Any other tips or advice that both of you would have for companies looking into this? To set them, or if they already have it, what they should be careful with? It's a general question, I know, but we also move on to this next topic. So if you still have any things that you would want to share on this?
I certainly, from what I've learned, because I've now been a part of the Mondelēz has an internal benchmarking team now, well, internal external, so it's looking at how we operate, not only just across planning, but all parts of the supply chain system. So, and what I kind of see is many emails I get. Oh, the data in my local planning report doesn't match what I've got in our global one. And it's about making sure you've got the transparency and the consistency of data source, making sure everyone understands. We have done a massive, huge effort in terms of listing out all of the KPIs that we tier it in terms of importance. But anything that drives the organisation is making sure everyone has a standard. There's a KPI owner. There is a standard definition. There is regional stewards and people who are the point of contact with any kind of questions. And my tip would be get all that done as soon as, if you're going down this kind of governance KPIs from a global perspective, get that done before you start start building anything in terms of reporting or data, because it's great to have all that data available, but then if people don't know where to direct the questions to or don't know what it means, then having a ready document to be able to say, okay, this is the importance of this is why I need to, and this is, if I've got a problem in this particular region, this is who I need to contact, is key to success of any kind of implementation of that kind of structure.
Okay. About that part really upfront, getting the data indeed clear, different levels, there's a line. Okay. And in terms of resistance from regional teams, resistance as in there is a certain best practice or a certain standard that is recommended, but if they want to deviate from that, or have you met with resistance from regional teams that say, look, we just want to do it our way, we don't even want to be engaged on that kind of event with global? I can imagine there's different levels from different regions. So how have you both seen that?
Yes, indeed. Indeed. It happens very often, but nevertheless, so as a global function you have to protect also your processes. But nevertheless, I'm still a big fan of standards, that's clear. But for me, it's also important to have the value add. So it doesn't help me to have a standard to say I'm standardized, but on the other hand side, I have no value add for, I would say, the second region for it, So I think you have to be also here open and give some, I would say, freedom, so that they can also design or shape a little bit the processes, but nevertheless every time under the control of the global functionality or the global department. So I saw a lot of situations where, okay, yes, it's a standard, but it's a standard that fits maybe for one region, but not for another one. Why I shouldn't really follow this standard? Yes, of course, it's reduce and stabilize the complexity, but we are in the supply chain, and to be honest, complexity is every time given in supply chain. But I think complexity is nothing, I would say, what should shock us, because I said every time complexity is a part of our life in supply chain, but please, you have to keep in mind at that moment when complexity cannot be managed anymore, then you run into a problem. So therefore, if you still, I would say, can a little bit shape your standardization, so to gain a value add for this, I would say, certain region, then of course it's good. But still, I would say under the control of the global department. So that's a little bit my personal opinion.
Okay. From your side, Paul?
I wouldn't say I've met resistance, but then as Tommy says, it's about what stage within the project implementation you find out about that complexity. And I will freely admit, we have found out days before implementation of certain products where someone will come on with a little nuance in terms of how they're reporting. And I kind of agree with Tommy's kind of point. Standardization, great if you can do that. I mean, if every single market was the same, we have the same process, everyone's data availability, then that's fantastic. My belief is that kind of standardization doesn't have to mean sameness, but it just means compatibility. So the way I kind of look at it is going back to demand planning. If we're in demand review, and let's say our CEO decides, oh, you know what, I'm doing a country visit, I'm going to go and sit in the demand review. My goal would be to make sure that 90% of what happens in that demand review is going to be, if they go to another country or across the world, then there is compatibility and, the same kind of key topics are discussed throughout those particular ones. So, and I think in terms of, you can't really hold people to this as they're described. You will do this because there's going to be a multitude of complexities as to why that can't be done. But again, if you can kind of get it into second, okay, I understand that. But ultimately, the ultimate goal of this particular process is going to be the same as it is whether it is in Indonesia or if it's in Costa Rica, for example. Then the end result is still going to be the same. We're going to ultimately have to generate a number that we believe in and service our customers to an acceptable level. So I think, again, driving that point about is make sure it's compatible between those markets rather than exactly the same. Then I think you've got a winning formula.
That's a good point. You did that, not sameness. You want to capture the same things, but the way in which it happens might be a bit different, and you would share best practices. I think that's A very good way to put it. Coming to the last topic here, and we briefly mentioned it already in the earlier section on processes and then mostly on people. Actually, this might differ from you too. I don't know what your opinions are, but how do you look at it in terms of, on one hand, the modeling part, but then also the agentic, or even like just the Gen AI part, let's say for now. Should that be something that you develop in-house as a multinational company? Should it be a packaged solution? Should you have a data science team internally or even externally that you work with? What are your opinions on that? Maybe Paul, starting with you.
I think you're very rarely going to get someone who's in one camp or another. The hybrid approach, and it seems so kind of diplomatic, but certainly we've got a team of data scientists within Mondelēz, some who are working on central analytics, some are sat within regions who kind of like tune models and take into account those parameters. But you can't really pick a side in this particular debate. Is the best systems will blend that customized intelligence, whether it's from the demand planner, whether it's from a data science team, with the package efficiency. So for me, it's the winning model isn't necessarily the smartest algorithm, it's the one that learns the fastest. So you're going to say it's a very wishy-washy, very in-the-middle answer, but I think certainly for our industries is that you need both, and it's certainly something that we incorporate within Mondelēz and our kind of future demand planning capabilities.
Okay. From your side, Tommy, you also have a diplomatic in between, or you go more to either end?
I can really underline what Paul said. So
okay.
Difficult, right? So we definitely combine both. So I would say with data science and with a great data science team, which is also very, I would say, implementing supply chain topics. So you can develop here a lot of new models, and you're very flexible and very, very fast. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But on the other hand side, standard packages, so they gives us also some automation and routine work. So therefore, it's for me difficult to say. Okay, it's only data science or package solution. I would say, of course, now it's definitely then also a topic of complexity, so you increase. But nevertheless, here I would say for the moment, both. Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
But
and
maybe we'll see.
And if I want to put you both on the spot and say you can't choose both, you get limited resources, and you have to either say that you would develop it internally, or no, you would go externally for external tools, which will be updated by them and with your inputs. Can you both give an answer in that case, or is it not possible?
You have to go at the same time, or is it?
yeah, you can do that if you want.
I would personally prefer a data science team, to be honest. I think they have that ability to establish a human relationship with the planners. We made a conscious choice to not have data scientists within demand reviews, or kind of have almost kind of ring fence them away from the sales, finance, marketing team, because there's a bombardment of rationale as to why different numbers should be different. But I think if you've got humans at the basis of the decision who can ratify and establish those relationships and help out the planners, I would certainly, if I was forced to, I'd go for the data science team.
Okay, and I saw you nodding, Tommy, when Paul put his answer forward, so you were immediately yes, you would do the same, I saw.
Yes, definitely. So we also start this initiative really to build like a forecast improvement team, which is clustered with a data science team, with process owner and a business partner. So and if they have some issues like in the forecast of maybe with some volatile order, so this is so simple and easy. In this, I would say, great team to figure out what is the reason and also to define measures how to improve it. So therefore, I would say this flexibility is strongly given by this constellation of a team. So I would say yes, data science, and it's very, very. I can only really. I'm inspired. Yeah, I'm inspired. What is today possible if you have like people in your company, especially in a supply chain organization, which knows data science. Yeah, so it's amazing. Yeah.
But again, sorry, Ben, just to add one additional point onto that, and Tommy and I are very lucky that we work for massive global companies. It's we have the capability of having to be able to pick a data science team smaller startup, a package solution, or even, we did flirt with the idea of complete external forecasting, rather than having something within house, they would do results as a service. So let's just celebrate the fact there are a multitude of options available to people, and choose which one's right for you at your particular company's evolution.
Okay. Coming back to the diplomatic. No, fair. That's fair. Okay, we've covered all of the topics. We're a bit out of time also, but I will take 3 of the questions that I see here in Q&A. They are on different ends. The first one being more on the modeling side. Which kind of models would you recommend these days to look into if you want to create a good forecast? That's a very generic one, but more on the first bucket. Any of you want to take that one, give some pointers?
Is it which kind of model or which kind of algorithm we are using, or?
I think they're referring to the algorithm. This is not about the data as such. I think it's more
gradient boosting.
Okay.
So in our situation, I would say one of the most used, not every time, but in our case, gradient boosting. But nevertheless, I'm every time also say, hey guys, let's start to use also the best fit. Yeah. So maybe one algorithm can fit, I don't know, 30% of your per location combination, but Arimax or something like this can be also very good for another location. So we start then as well to do some best fit analysis, and we allow them the system to choose the best one for the current situation. So it should be a combination, but I would say our general algorithm is gradient boosting.
Okay. From your side, Paul?
For Mondelēz, it completely depends on the products and the seasonality that is attached to it as well. So we have products that are sold once a year because of a holiday celebration. So there are nearest neighbor Arima that we have used, but it will completely depend on the circumstances of what product we're forecasting for.
Okay, clear. The another question is more on the second topic, which is about. There's 2 on it. I'll ask the first one first. There's a lot of talk about agentic AI. So have you seen any of that in planning? It's a generic one. Any opinion you both have on that?
I saw a great demonstration a couple of years ago by someone called Ben Van Delm, I think it seems to mind. So it's certainly something that is possible, and the possibilities of it are fantastic.
There was also a demo back then, of course.
Yeah, in a demo. So yes, it's, you kind of certainly see. I can see in more kind of the more boutique, smaller planning vendors. It's at the stage of evolution where Mondelēz are at the moment. It's not implemented, but I know there are certain capabilities, and there's some kind of, I think certainly was used by a mutual connection of ours, Ben, if I remember how we kind of first met. In terms of their planning, I don't want to name people just in case, but I know kind of some people in the Netherlands we're starting using that and using more the agentic to make their plan decisions and free up some time for their planners.
Yeah. There's I mean, maybe Tommy first. I will let you answer. Do you have an opinion on that, on the agentic topic?
Yeah, I see here a big potential, to be honest. So, for example, in data preparation, so to use agentic AI to check the data quality. So, like, not only is it filled or something like this. So, for that, agentic AI can be a topic in future, and this is also on our roadmap what we would like to do, and also a little bit the topic of analyzing data. So if we have frequent, I would say, SNOP cycles, so maybe. Possible, or I think it is possible for agentic AI to analyze the data, to prepare the planners, to go into the discussion, to have more time to challenge maybe the cross-functional departments, So summarizing something like this. So this is how I would like to start, maybe to use agentic AI combined with the forecast one. Yeah. So like a control function, check that in the data preparation, data quality, but also maybe which can be like a supporter for the planners in analyzing data, summarizing, and maybe also giving some recommendation how to challenge cross-function.
Yeah. Okay. it's more on the. I mean, you have different steps, right? With the planning, where you say that in the initial stage of maybe you're collecting different types of data, analyzing it already, not doing the core modeling as such, because that might not be possible. But and then in the output part also there, it's in those steps. But in the middle part, you need your data science team essentially. Right? That's yeah, okay, and that's indeed. It's also a bit my opinion, and then also indeed like Paul, yeah, we showed that was more on the chat, and you see a lot of that functionality right now. I think the full agentic, like our end-to-end or the core parts, I don't think it's there yet at the moment. But there's interesting demos and potential of it. I saw another question that related indeed to what you just said, Tommy. That's more on the collection of unstructured data and different inputs with GenAI, so that we've covered. One more question is related to the sources. So what sources do you use? What open source data do you use? So if you have any kind of platforms or providers that you can recommend?
Yeah, so for example, from the externals, so we have GFK, for example, Amazon Web Services, for example, Google Trends, Google in general. So all, I would say, platforms are open source and can be directly used, can be on via, so you can also, I would say, consume the data via API or ETL. So it's then which needs to be clarified with the data science, so which is the best option. But these, I would say, the general one, what we are using.
Okay. Any others that you have?
Same for us, Ben. I would only say Nielsen on top of for sales volumes.
Okay. Thank you, gentlemen. There's a couple of other, but we've covered actually some of these. So if somebody still has a question, do feel free to send it over. And I would like to thank you both, Paul and Tommy, for sharing your insights during this webinar. So the recording will be sent out to people who are unable to join. And if there are still any questions, I will direct them to both of you. So thank you very much. And thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Tommy. Thank you, everyone.
Rest of the day.
Pleasure.
Bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.